We're bringing you tonight a special debate. We're opening the lid on the food sector and what food delivery in Switzerland will look like in the future. Joining me in the studio to discuss this and more is, first of all, Vincent Schäfer from Swiss food delivery firm Smood, Chief of Gastro Journal Rito Wild, and St. Gallen University Professor Thomas Rudolph. So let's kick things off with you, maybe, Rito. Can you paint us a little picture of what the current situation is like in the food and beverage market in Switzerland and where food delivery fits into that picture?
Right, we have in the market a turnover of around 15 billion Swiss francs a year with all restaurants together. And if it comes to food delivery, it's at the moment around, by the end of the year, 180 million Swiss francs. So that's a forecast already. And I would say in the next few years, it's going up, jumping up to 250 million Swiss francs. So if you compare that, it's still a niche, but it's growing a lot, I would call it.
And Vincent, you've actually been in food and beverage for as long as you can remember. How has that actually evolved to the stage that Rito has mentioned?
It's absolutely true. So this have moved to a statistic that is around 2022, around 300 million Swiss francs for the Swiss market. Almost 50% of all people in Switzerland has ordered food in delivery, and basically, yes, we have seen this growth and maintained.
Thomas, compared to other countries, how big are the Swiss on dining in and ordering in? I mean, how do we stack up even compared to our neighbours like France and Germany?
I guess it might be pretty similar to Germany and France. I'm not sure about this. We didn't run a survey about it in comparison to other countries, but I can say for Switzerland, and we have some facts and figures about Switzerland. 40% of the population is interested in ordering online their food, and 15% already ordered food online. If I compare this to other countries, I would say that it is far behind the UK, for example. The UK has a strong demand for food online delivery. This is something like 50% of the European market, and we are, of course, far behind China. In China, at the bigger cities, for example, food delivery makes up something like 50% of all food consumption, which is a lot more compared to Europe.
Why do you think Switzerland is lagging behind in terms of these markets?
Because we have a well-developed food market here in Switzerland. We have a lot of well-established food retailers, bricks and mortar retailers. We have a network of stores which is amazing compared, for example, to China. And our consumers are used to the bricks and mortar retailers in food retailing. That's the reason. So from a mind perspective, a big shift is necessary compared to China, for example, when we talk about Switzerland.
In Europe, also, the Switzerland is number 2 in the disposable income to order food online. And we have done a little comparison. For Switzerland, we have like 39,000 Swiss francs on a yearly basis.
In disposable income.
Exactly. Whereas in the European zone, we have around 31. So this is the comparison that you have. So this is a big opportunity for the Swiss market. And this is second place after Luxembourg.
So Thomas was just saying it all comes down to a mindset shift. What do you think that will look like?
It is also a mindset shift. We are also now, like you have less time, you have less maybe cooking knowledge also. And also, we are also talking a lot to the new millennials. And basically, they are used to order and receive something directly afterwards. And this is an answer to their need.
I would like to add something to the question you asked, Thomas. You have to know that the history of food delivery is quite new in Switzerland because the first food delivery company was in 1998. Yep. Of course, it wasn't online at that time, but we were calling food by phone. But this is quite new. So it might be also a big reason why it's still developing everything. And we have a tradition of going out to restaurants. And it's also, what you also have to know is that if you talk about Switzerland, it's already a bit wrong, because we have big differences between the cantons and the speaking parts. Like the Romandie, for example, they really go out for lunch. Swiss Germans are doing that also, but not that often. They might maybe eat only a sandwich instead of going to restaurants. So you cannot call Switzerland as a nation, because there are big differences between the cantons and between the language groups. And I think that's very important to add.
So what impact is this going to be having on the restaurants? Have we gotten to the point where they cannot afford not to be on the delivery platforms?
Well, I think it's not that we are not that far. The delivery platforms are big chances for the restaurants. At the moment, they don't need to be part of it. But it's a bit like it was 10 years ago. Do you have to have a website? Yes or not? Do you have to be on Instagram? Yes or not? So it really depends when the train is leaving, and this train is about to leave. And I think it's a chance for restaurants to cooperate with food delivery services. But at the moment, it's not a must. They will survive without. They have other possibilities.
Let's talk about the competition we're seeing in the market. Making headlines, Uber has entered Switzerland, Lausanne, Geneva, and Zurich. How is this going to shake up the existing food delivery market, especially because so far it's only been dominated by a few players in Switzerland?
Yes, so for us, the arrival of Uber Eats is going to drive more visibility on the delivery itself, of course. On the other hand, as you already said, Smooth as a company is also used to have international companies in Switzerland. For instance, Just Eat started as eat.ch in Zurich as well, and was there already a few years ago. And when they switched to Just Eat, it was also how to compete with such a big company for the company's food.
Thomas, do you see Uber Eats potentially catching up and capturing a big enough market share like the one we're seeing from eat.ch?
First of all, I think the competition really is heating up right now. It's not only happening in Switzerland, it's happening all over Europe, and it's happening all over the world. There are more and more disruptors coming into this market, and I think it's quite understandable why, because there is something like a laziness going on. When we talk about the consumers, they are getting used to ordering non-food items online, but they are now also getting used to order food online. And coming back to your question with regard to Uber, I think we have to keep in mind two perspectives. From a customer perspective, I think it really helps because logistics is becoming much more efficient, and probably the delivery prices and delivery costs are going down. From a company perspective, because we have now more and more competitors, the impact will be that profits will go down for more and more companies who are right now in this market, and that means there will be a consolidation going on.
So should they be concerned in terms of existing competition in Switzerland, and if they should be preparing for Uber Eats expanding more in Switzerland, what could be some strategies that they could be working on?
I mean, first of all, I think Uber helps for the development of this market, which is right now a niche market. So Uber is increasing the logistic system and the logistic network. Improving this network helps also for the other players. But at the same time, I mean, prices will go down. What does that mean for the other players? I think it is becoming more important to differentiate your business to your competitors. I mean, if everybody is using the same restaurants, is offering the same prices, I mean, customer loyalty will be pretty low, and that means that also the profits of those companies are pretty low, or will be pretty low. So differentiation is key for the future. After a first round of market growth, it will be very, very important to think about how can we become different in order to make a profit, because this industry right now makes a lot of losses.
To wrap up quickly, Well, we can get to that later.
Yes.
To wrap up quickly, we also just recently saw food delivery startup Deliveroo exiting the German market. And I guess a question to all of you is there room enough for more players in Switzerland, or will we eventually see the smaller independent players when it comes to food delivery being kicked out?
I don't think the small players will be kicked out. You know, as it was said earlier, our strength now is to differentiate. Part of our differentiation is also to do delivery by cars, for instance, and being able to deliver great restaurant, 2-star Michelin restaurant sometimes, which on a bicycle is maybe not feasible. And that's super important on that side. So I really don't think that the small players will be kicked out. Also, we have been there for a long time and we have gathered some data. Switzerland is also, as was said earlier, a complex market with different languages, different laws, different cantons, different habits, different meal times. The meal time are not the same in Zurich and in Geneva. And a big corporate company maybe doesn't have this knowledge. And for us, it's a big opportunity to stay in the market.
I think in the world of globalization, it's very important to know that people also like to go for globalized brands, but also they like the regional ones. They like the farmer around the corner. They like to buy food from there, or the farmer is delivering to them. So I think it's both. It's the big brands, but also the small companies. And look to the trendy restaurants. The trendy restaurants, they have all these trends like Scandinavian food or like Israeli food. But also some of them, they have really local food, regional food, local wine, the special pork from the farm they know. So these are both two trends. So I really think it's space for somebody that operates very local or very regional could be an option too.
Now, vegetarian, plant-based options, insects and dairy alternatives. Thomas, you have done research before on how the Swiss like to eat. How do you picture Switzerland's eating habits going forward?
That's a difficult question because the answer will be pretty long. But anyway, let's pick up some of the most important trends. First of all, food consumption is becoming more important. The Swiss people spend more time for eating compared to, let's say, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and 8 years ago, when we run this research for many times. That's the first point. Food is becoming much more important. Secondly, we have a tendency that full grain, for example, less cholesterol, vegan, and mostly the high protein food is becoming much more important compared to the previous years. And thirdly, I would like to say that we are eating more out of our houses. So when we talk about breakfast, when we talk about lunch, and when we talk about dinner, there is a tendency that people like to eat outside. Which is quite interesting. So if we compare the numbers of 2019 with 2014, you can say that for all of those 3 meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner, there is a tendency that the market share of eating at home is decreasing by 5%. These are the most important trends in my understanding.
Rita, I'd love to get your take, because how do you think that food delivery services, including Smoot, including Uber Eats, should be catering to consumers being more demanding of having, say, for example, sustainable choices, more vegan, vegetarian options on the table?
Well, you know, at the end, the consumer has to decide. So I think you know much better what the consumer wants. And I think at the end, it's what people are asking for and what you're delivering. And there is a trend, like Thomas just mentioned, of vegan food, but the trend is not much on a very, very small percentage. Let's look to Tel Aviv. In Tel Aviv, 50% of all the people are eating vegan. 50%, 50. And here in Switzerland, we are very, very low. I don't know, it must be 1 or 2% or so are eating vegan.
So it'll still take some time for that area to develop.
It takes a lot of time, yes. And the trends, I mean, you don't need to set up trends because people are asking that for you. People are going to certain restaurants, and everything takes much longer in Switzerland. That's for sure.
Still, restaurants adapt to those trends as well, and
yes, and we will add it in your app.
Absolutely, I mean. But the basics. I mean, the standards still remains part of our bestsellers. For instance, are still the burgers, the pizzas, and the sushis. And maybe it varies a little bit culturally between the German side and the French side.
So even with all this discussion, people still go for that comfort food.
You have to imagine, everything started in '98. I just mentioned that before. And 20 years ago, what was delivered or asked most was sushi and pizza. And what you see saying, right now. So 20 years after, with so many different trends, with internet, with all these social medias, it remains more or less the same.
Yeah,
and
burgers took the lead on pizza.
And you should not forget these home delivery services, food delivery services, they are maybe 100 of the whole turnover. So it's really, we are talking about a very small part, a very interesting, growing part, but at the end, it's still a huge minority of restaurants.
So developing and catering to these changing consumer tastes, even though it's at a slower pace in Switzerland, that's one challenge that needs to be addressed. But also, this is an area or a market that is crowded. We're seeing new competition. What do you think are the biggest pressures on the food delivery market as of right now? To adapt to also this market, the restaurant has to do all those changes to adapt to the market, and we still have to have a good offer to present also to our customer. So that's one big thing. We have also to follow those trends, and we have maybe to bring those trends to area that are a little bit outside the cities as well. Talking about that, maybe Ghost Kitchen is one of this project. Maybe can you explain?
So Ghost Kitchen is basically dark kitchen, Ghost Kitchen. It's basically a place where you have a couple of kitchens where you have either some brands, either some restaurants, either some chefs who are ready to propose their food or propose the food of their restaurant in the city center, maybe outside. And with the data that we gather, we are able to open those kitchens in relevant places to bring the same kind of food outside the cities.
Thomas, just to get your point of view on this, we've seen some delivery platforms charging fairly high commissions, sometimes asking about 30%. Do you think that this is going to pose a challenge to maybe more of the smaller restaurant players going forward?
That's a problem for the restaurants, of course. If you look to the cross margin of the restaurants, if they only sell their food inside the restaurant, the cross margin is something like 70%. If they sell their meals over a platform, it goes down something like to 40%, as you said before. The commission is something like 30%. So it is extra money for the restaurants right now, and I think it makes a lot of sense to look for those for this extra money. But in the future, on the long run, I think we need a different business model when we talk about food delivery. And how does this new business model maybe look like? I think when we just check what Deliveroo is right now doing, they are trying to verticalize their business. So they are looking also for producing the food. They are opening their dark kitchens at some places, and perhaps we can talk about this idea later on. But what I like to say is that I think because this market at the moment is at a very early stage, we need some disruptive ideas to make this food delivery market profitable, because that's the biggest problem right now. Most companies, or let's say all companies, make big losses.
What are some of the disruptive ideas you think that could come into play?
I would like to add something to Thomas or also to the first question about challenges, because the majority or many restaurants, majority is maybe a hard word, but a huge number of restaurants, they don't make profit. It's a very tough business because, you know, the rent in Switzerland are very high, the food costs, the costs for people hiring, everything is very high, and you have to, the big challenge is to make a little profit. This is the first challenge. Another challenge is it's a smaller part that people are not so reliable like they used to be. So you have a reservation Friday evening, 4 people, and they don't show up. What do you do with 4 people not having in the restaurant? Friday evening is a good evening for a restaurant. So these are also challenges. There are also apps today for the restaurants that they can manage to deal with it. But this is also a challenge that wasn't like that 20 years ago. So people have more options. They have more options to order food online. They have more options to go there. So many new restaurants are opening. How do you make noise in the market that people know where you are? So this is also a big challenge. So this is, I think that a restaurant today, they have really, it's not easy. It's always a dream of many Swiss people. Oh, I open my own restaurant. But then at the end, they see what is really tough. You work so many hours in a week, like 60, 70 hours. And it could be, to come back to that, what we talk also about, it could be a chance with this delivery.
We're seeing a lot of M&A actually in the sector. Just Eat, UK listed, which owns Eat.ch here. They just last week agreed on a $6 billion merger with Takeaway.com. So do we see more consolidation, M&A activity in the horizon for Switzerland?
I don't see it at the moment. There is this key player, Just Eat, who is going with Takeaway. I don't think Uber Eats is going to merge with them. So I don't see place for any other things like this in Switzerland. Maybe I'm wrong.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay, and you just mentioned, just a last point, you said we need to make noise in the market. One way that people are making noise in the market is turning to innovation like self-driving cars or having drones getting their food delivered. I mean, I certainly have not seen this in Switzerland. How far away do you think we are from getting our pizza delivered by a drone here?
I think it's pretty complicated. I think it's a very good dream. It will happen, but it's pretty complicated. Why? For instance, first of all, you need to have an airspace for a drone, otherwise you will have plane collision. And then let's say you live in a 10-floor building. Where am I going to deliver you? You know, it's not possible. Then I will have to ask you to go down in the street and to pick up your food, and maybe you don't want that. So for me, and also for Switzerland, Switzerland is a market where the quality of the service that we provide is super important. And being delivered by drone on the rooftop of your building, or maybe at the ground floor of your building, and go there to pick up the food, I think that's not yet to come.